So, welcome dear student. In this video, we will discuss about the optical activity and chirality of a molecule. Okay. So, what is optical activity? In order to know what is optical activity, we will learn simple idea about plane polarized light. Okay. So, what is plane polarized light? Plane polarized light. Okay. So, the light we are used to it, like sunlight or light coming from this bulb. So, these lights are three-dimensional light. Okay, they propagate in three-dimensional. Okay, there is a electric field vector, magnetic field vector perpendicular to each other, and light propagates in the perpendicular direction to both the electric and magnetic vectors. Okay, but what happens in plane polarized light? This light propagates in a particular plane. Okay, so how we get this light? So when normal light, I'm just giving you a simple example. Normal light passes through Nicol biprism. There are other ways also to produce a plane polarized light. We are taking one example. So this is a three-dimensional light. Okay, and when we pass these lights from Nicol biprism, the light that emerges out from the prism is plane polarized. Okay, plane and polarized means it is propagating in one plane. Now, there are few chemicals, maybe organic or inorganic, there are few chemicals. What does they do? They have a special property that when this plane polarized light passes through some solutions, what they do? This molecule or this solution has an ability to rotate the plane of the polarized light. They can rotate this light, okay, to the right or to the left, okay, and this special property of this chemical is called optical activity. Okay, optical activity. And we have to understand that not all the chemicals can show this property of optical activity. Okay, so those molecules which will show this optical activity will be called optically active compounds. Okay, and those molecules are also called optically active isomers. Okay, so like we have discussed isomers in class 11, chain isomerism, functional isomerism, geometrical isomerism. This is a new type of isomerism which is optical isomerism. We will talk about it in detail. So the preliminary idea is what? Some solution or some organic molecules can rotate the plane of a polarized light to right or left, it depends. But those molecules which can rotate are called optically active molecules, and the whole process is known as optical activity. Okay, and for your knowledge, for your understanding, the polarized light is a bit different from our normal light. Okay, have you ever used Polaroid glasses? So the Polaroid glasses are special kind of glasses. They are they are sensitive towards the polarized light. A natural example of this plane polarized light is rainbows. Okay, the rainbow is highly polarized light. Okay, it is highly polarized. Rainbows are highly polarized. And what happens if I have a Polaroid glasses, I'm wearing it, the sunglasses. So what will happen? You can test it at home also. It's a very fun experiment. What you can do, if you have a LED or LCD TV, then you will see that suppose this is my LED TV, okay. So the light coming from LED or LCD TV are also polarized light, okay. So these lights are polarized, and suppose the plane of polarization is like this, okay. The plane of polarization is like this, okay. So you will see these polarization phenomena, polarization of light in detail in class 12 physics, optics part. You will be taught all these things in detail. I am just telling you this for your information and for fun. You can enjoy this at home. So suppose this is the polarization, okay, the axis of polarization. What will happen? Suppose you have a Polaroid glass. If you put your Polaroid glass like this, you will be able to see this light easily, because the axis of polarization and the axis of your Polaroid is in the same direction. Now if you rotate this glass, what will happen? You will see that the picture is getting faded and faded. And if you put this glass like this, suppose like this, that means perpendicular to the propagation, you will see that a very peculiar thing happens. What will happen? You won't be able to see your TV. It will be completely black, okay. So you won't be able to get any picture in the TV. It's a very fun experiment. It's quite interesting, and it tells you about the special nature of polarized light, okay. So if you have LCD or LED TV, and if you have a sunglass if it cost around 1000 to 2000, actually cheap sunglasses are not Polaroid glasses, so you won't be able to see this phenomenon. You have to use some expensive glasses for this purpose. Generally Muijin glasses are highly Polaroid actually, so but it's too expensive. It costs around 10,000 or 12,000, so not that expensive, but you can use around 1,500 sunglasses. If you have, you can use it at home to see the different or peculiar nature of polarized light. And if using the same sunglass, if you use this sunglass to look at the sun, you won't see this phenomenon happening. But that means sun will not vanish, okay. Why? Because sunlight is not polar in nature, okay. They are not polarized light, but light coming from LED TV is polarized. Same, if you look at rainbow through these glasses, at certain angle the rainbow will vanish, okay. That means rainbows are also highly polarized in nature, okay. So since we are talking chemistry, so we will not go into the details of the physics of the polarized light, and we will discuss the chemical part of this activity. So what is our goal here in this section? So our goal is, we want to know which molecule will show this property, that means optical activity. All the chemicals cannot show this optical activity, so which chemical will show this optical activity? So there are few conditions, okay. Conditions for optical activity, that means any molecule satisfying these conditions will be optically active. The first condition is, the compound must contain a chiral carbon, okay. Sometimes we call it chiral center also. So a chiral carbon, I will discuss in detail what is chiral carbon, how to determine a chiral carbon. And the second one is, there must not be any plane or point, plane or point of symmetry. Okay, so there should not be any symmetry and there should be a chiral carbon. Okay, so we will discuss these 2 points in detail now, that what is chiral carbon and what is, you know, the plane or point of symmetry. Okay, so let's check these things. So first let's discuss about the chiral carbon. So if you go through your NCERT book, you will see that we call anything chiral when its mirror image is not superimposable. What does it mean when we call it superimposable? Superimposable means, one, suppose this is an object and this is image. Okay, so if it, you know, aligns totally, then it's called superimposable. Like suppose if I have a marker and if I put another marker on it, these two things are superimposable because they are similar, symmetric, exactly same. Okay, if I put one on another, you won't be able to see the, you know, other one. So this is called superimposable. And those things whose mirror images are not superimposable to each other are called chiral. But this definition, you know, is a bit difficult to find chiral carbons. I will tell you, or I will teach you an easy way to find a chiral carbon. But for the sake of our syllabus, I am telling you this. Suppose this is my hand, okay, or I will use this hand, and suppose I have a mirror over here. I have a plane mirror over here, and I put my hand. This is my left hand. I am putting it here. So if I put my left hand near the mirror, I will get an image like this. Okay, this will be the image. Okay, it's easy to understand that left hand image will be my right hand. Okay, and now if I take the image and put it over the object, they don't match. Okay, they don't match. So this is not superimposable. Okay, this is not superimposable, and if it is not superimposable, then we call it chiral. Okay, if it is superimposable, then it's not chiral. But this is just theory. Okay, practically how we will determine the chirality? So determining chirality practically is very easy. Suppose we have a carbon, and to be a chiral molecule, there is a condition that carbon must be attached to, I will use a different color for better understanding. Let's use blue for this. So let's say it's D, and I use another color. Let's use green, and suppose this is E. Okay, this is green, this is E. So why I am using different colors? So that I can show you that all the bonds or all the elements or molecules around the central carbon should be different. Okay, all are different. So when carbon is attached to all the different molecules or elements, this carbon will be called a chiral carbon. Okay, this carbon is called chiral carbon. Okay, let us take an example. Suppose I have a molecule like this, CH3, C, chlorine. Suppose this is hydrogen, this is suppose CH2, CH3. Okay, now if you check this carbon, then this carbon is connected to one chlorine, one methyl, one ethyl, and one hydrogen. That is, all the substituent molecular groups are different. So this carbon is a chiral carbon. Okay, this carbon is a chiral carbon. But now suppose I check this carbon. Okay, so this carbon is connected to 3 hydrogen and the whole this part. Okay, so this part is different, but carbon is connected to another 3 hydrogen, and all the 3 hydrogens are same. So this carbon is not chiral. Okay, again in this carbon we have 2 hydrogen, so 2 same groups, so it's not chiral, it's not chiral. But this carbon is chiral because all the substituents are different. Okay, so I think it's not that difficult, it's very easy to understand that all the molecules are different, it's a chiral carbon. Now we will move to the second condition. Okay, our second condition. So second condition is the point or the plane of symmetry. Okay, so what is point of symmetry or plane of symmetry? Suppose I have a molecule like this. Okay, I have taught you this structure in class 11. They are called Fischer projection. Okay, Fischer projection. So this is a Fischer projection of the molecule, and suppose the molecule looks like this. Okay, this is actually tartaric acid. Okay, this is tartaric acid. Oh, not tartaric acid, this is dicarboxylic acid, 2-hydroxy dicarboxylic acid. So what happens in this molecule? Let's check the chirality first. First we will check the chirality of this molecule. So this is a carbon. Okay, and you can easily see that this carbon is connected to 1 hydrogen, 1 hydroxyl group, 1 carboxylic group, and the complete this group. That means this carbon is obviously chiral because suppose it's A, it's B, it's C and it's D. All of them are different. Okay, so since all of them are different, that means this carbon is chiral. Okay, now we will check this carbon, the lower one. Okay, and you will easily see that this carbon is also chiral because it has a OH, H, COH and this whole group. Okay, so this carbon is also chiral. So we have 2 chiral carbons here. Okay, so what was our first condition? The first condition was that if any molecule contains a chiral carbon, then it should be optically active. That means this compound should show optical activity, but it will not show the optical activity. And what is the reason? The reason is this plane of symmetry. Now what this symmetrical line does, that if you cut this molecule into equal halves, the upper and the lower parts are superimposable on each other. Okay, they are same, exactly same. So if you cut it in 2 halves, and this line, the plane going through this line, this plane, there will be a plane going through this line. So this plane will be called the plane of symmetry. Or if I consider this point will be called the point of symmetry. So if I cut through this plane, the upper and the lower half of this molecule is exactly same, superimposable to each other. And since there is a plane of symmetry, so this molecule is optically inactive because of the plane of symmetry. Okay, now suppose I change this group to CH3, suppose. Now we can easily see that this plane of symmetry problem has been resolved. Okay, now this molecule has no longer any plane or point of symmetry. Now this molecule is optically active. Okay, now we will study few things about these optically active compounds. Okay, so suppose I have a molecule like this, and I will draw only the Fischer projection related to these molecules. Okay, so suppose I have, let me write these things in different colors. Lower one will do black, it's not mandatory. Now suppose if I have a mirror over here, then what will happen? We will get an image of this molecule, and how the image will look? The image will look somewhat like this. Okay, so let it be blue. Okay, so you can see that this molecule is a mirror image of this molecule. Okay, now when, and at the same time this is already optically active. Okay, if it had not been optically active, that means suppose instead of CH3 if I would have taken COOH, then there is no question of putting a mirror over here. Okay, we use this mirror only if the molecule is optically active. So since this molecule is optically active, so we are placing a mirror and we are getting a mirrored image. Okay, and why we are taking the mirror image? Because this two pair which are mirror images to each other are called enantiomers. Enantiomers. That means they are enantiomers to each other. So optically active molecules which are mirror image to each other are called enantiomers. Okay, so this is the definition of enantiomer. Now I can have a different, structure for this molecule also. Okay, I will keep this structure for the reference and I will rub off this part and I will show you that I can have a different arrangement for the same molecule. Okay, let's take a different arrangement for this molecule. I can write down this molecule like this also: CH3, COOH, H, OH and OH, H. Now you can see that both the molecules have the same molecular formula, but they are not mirror images. Now this molecule is totally a new structure. This molecule and this molecule has no connection. Okay, as far as the image is concerned. Now I can again put a mirror here. Okay, I can put a mirror. Okay, so if I put a mirror, I will get a mirror image again for this molecule, and it will look like, it will look somewhat like this. Okay, so this is the mirror image of this molecule. So again, since they are mirror images, so what will happen? These are enantiomers again. Since they are optically active and they are mirror image to each other, then they should be enantiomers. Okay, but this structure and this structures are not mirror images to each other. Okay, so do we have any relation for such objects which are not mirror images to each other and optically active? So yes, we do have a correlation. So those molecules which have same molecular formula are optically active but are not mirror images to each other are called distereomers. Okay, so they are called distereomers. Okay, they are distereomers. So which are not mirror images are distereomers, and which are mirror images are called enantiomers. Okay, so now we will move to next topic, and the next topic is racemic mixture. Okay, so what is racemic mixture? Okay, so what is racemic mixture? And I forgot to tell you about one thing in the optical activity. I told you about that light, light gets rotated either towards right or towards left in optical activity. So when any molecule moves the plane of the light towards right, it's called dextrorotatory, and when it moves towards left, it's called levorotatory. Okay, so dextrorotatory and levorotatory. Okay, few molecules are dextrorotatory and few molecules are levorotatory. Now we will use this concept. So what is racemic mixture? So racemic mixture is equimolar mixture of two enantiomers. And they are optically inactive. Okay, let me discuss this in detail. Suppose I have a compound like this, A, B, suppose F and D. So this is chiral. I put a mirror over here. So what I will get? I will get F, A, B and D. So now these two mirror images are what? Enantiomers. So if I get an equimolar mixture, that means 50% of this and 50% of this, and I mix it, then the mixture will be called racemic mixture. And I am saying that racemic mixture is optically inactive. This molecule independently is optically active. This molecule independently is also active, but equimolar mixture is optically inactive. And you will easily understand this. I just told you that few molecules rotate the light towards right and few molecules rotate towards left. So what happens if this molecule rotates towards right? That means if this is dextrorotatory, then automatically the mirror image will be levorotatory. And if I take equimolar mixture, what will happen? Suppose if it rotates 20 degrees to the right, what it will do? It will rotate 20 degrees to the left, and the result will be zero rotation. So there will be no rotation to the light. So though individually these molecules are optically active, their equimolar mixtures are not optically active. Okay, and you have to keep in mind that it's the equimolar mixture of enantiomer, not the distereomers. Okay, so only enantiomers can make racemic mixture. Okay. Now, so one more definition that we will see is suppose I talked about a compound where we had plane of symmetry. Okay, so since there was a plane of symmetry here, so we discussed that this is optically inactive. Okay, so when a compound has a chiral center or chiral carbon but is optically inactive due to the presence of a plane of symmetry or point of symmetry, these kind of compounds are called mesocompounds. Okay, they are called mesocompounds because they have chiral carbon but they are not optically active because of the plane of the symmetry. Okay, so they are called mesocompounds. Okay. Now, when we were discussing about our SN1 and SN2 mechanism, that means substitution nucleophilic reactions, we saw that in SN2 reaction, I told you that what happened, in SN2, if this was the starting molecule, we got the result like this. Okay, that means when we use the nucleophile, since the nucleophile attacked from the back side, so we got just a mirror image product. It's like mirror image. Okay, the halogen just got replaced by the OH, but the main thing is the shape of the molecule got inverted. Okay, it's just the inverted shape. It's like, you know, have you ever seen an umbrella? Okay, this is an umbrella. Okay, you are in a storm. What will happen? It will go like this, isn't it? So this is called inversion. Okay, just inversion. So here the inversion of structure takes place in which mechanism? In SN2 mechanism. Okay, the inversion of the structure takes place, but only inversion takes place. So if this molecule, suppose if this molecule is optically active, then obviously this molecule will be also optically active. Okay, you can see that since this is optically active, this is also optically active. Just the inverted thing will happen. Okay, but the product will remain optically active after the reaction also. Okay, but we see that in SN1 mechanism we had a carbocation. Okay, and in carbocation nucleophile had a scope of attacking from both the sides. Okay, so what happened? We got equal inversion and retention. So this is called retention of the image. When the image remains the same, that means if the product was like this, suppose the reactant was like this and the product is like this. So this is called retention of the structure, and if it gets inverted, then it's called inversion of the structure. So what is happening in SN2 mechanism? 100% image of the inversion of the product is happening, but in SN1 mechanism we are getting 50% retention and 50% inversion. So can you guess what will happen? Try to guess it. We will get two different forms like this, you know, one will be like this and the another will look like this. Aren't they mirror images to each other? And in the product they have a 50-50 ratio, so they are racemic mixture. That means if we are using SN1 mechanism, then our final product will have a chiral carbon, will have a chiral center, can be optically active, but it will not show optical activity. Why? Because of this 50-50 inversion and retention of the structure. So they will form a racemic mixture. So in SN1 reaction the product is a racemic mixture, and in SN2 mechanism the product is optically active. There is a chance that the product will be optically active. Not all the time we get optically active compound. The initial compound should be optically active in order to get the final product optically active. Okay. So this was all about this video lecture. In this video lecture we discussed about optical activity, about optical isomers, enantiomers, diastereomers, inversion of the image, retention of the image. So go through these topics carefully. Okay, so we will see you in next video.